Welcome to the Traveling Flaneur podcast, where I'll talk about the economy, politics, history, and culture of the places I've visited. I'll also give you travel tips, recommend places to visit, things to do, and the best food. The life of a flaneur is that of an observer, a person who wanders aimlessly with eyes always open to any opportunity. It is a person who is in no hurry and prefers the journey over the destination. I believe that in this hurried world we live in, we need more flaneurs, and I hope you enjoy the perspective from a traveling flaneur and maybe become one in your next trip. Hi, and welcome to my last episode around Canada, where I'm going to take you to the most French city in the entire country, and it's the city of Quebec, or as you would say it in French, Quebec. This is the capital of the Quebec province, and it is home to around 700,000 people, 95% of whom are French-speaking people. Year after year, the city appears in travel magazine rankings as one of the best destinations to visit in Canada, and in today's episode, I want to prove to you why it is that, because this city is amazing and it is definitely one of the prettiest that I've been visiting. The first thing that I'll present in this episode are some fun facts to show you how interesting the city of Quebec is. And the first is that it was founded in 1608 by Samuel de Champlain, which makes it one of the oldest cities in all of North America. Its entire old area is also going to be recognized by the UNESCO as the World Heritage Site, and this is a city that's going to have influences from various cultures such as the Huron-Wendat, which are the indigenous people, the English, the Irish, and especially the French, crowning itself as the cradle of French North America. And the final important thing is that this is the only walled city north of Mexico, so it's going to be a very particular city. I'm going to give you a brief summary of Quebec's history because most of the places that we're going to visit in Quebec are going to be related to these historical events, and this is why the city is not only beautiful, but it's also very, very interesting. When the French landed on the shores of what is now the city of Quebec, the land was already home to what in Latin America we call indigenous people, but in Canada they call the First Nations. But as I was telling you in my previous episodes, and unlike what happened in other colonies, the English didn't do massive killings of these indigenous people, but they created rather an alliance with them. Because the city was so far north, it had a very harsh climate conditions for the French, so they needed the indigenous people to survive, and besides that, the indigenous people were experts at hunting beavers and selling their fur, a product that became very, very popular in Europe for creating hats and waterproof coats. So this city, Quebec, became more of a trading point for all of this beaver fur. After the French, then the British arrived, and they took control over the area with the conquest of 1763, but they gave the locals one very important benefit. They would allow them to maintain their French culture, keeping their language, their customs, and everything as if they were still a French colony, just that now they belong to England. So you might be wondering, why did England do that? And clearly it wasn't because they were good people or good colonizer, because they didn't do that with all of their other colonies. What happens is that they had certain political interests because England was already having some problems with the United States because they had been fighting with this colony. And when United States tried to invade Canada in 1775 and tried to impose English, their constitution and everything, all of the Quebecois people who wanted to maintain their French culture fought alongside England, defending the colony and preventing the United States from taking part of Canada just because they were so proud of their culture and they wanted to preserve this French part of their culture. So, as you can see, this is going to be a quite French culture, and it has been consistently so for over many, many years. And that's why you may also hear the joke that if it's very expensive to go to Paris, then you should travel to Quebec because it's going to be very similar. So, now that we already know why this city is so interesting, I'll give you some travel advice for visiting Quebec. And I'm going to start with how many days you should visit it. I think that 2 days are going to be enough for exploring the city center. But nearby, you're also going to find that there are some trips that you could take, such as Ile d'Orléans or Montmorency Falls, or also nearby forests or Saint-Anne-de-Beaupré. I'm going to be talking about all of these ones at the end of the episode, but if you decide to visit these places, of course your stay is going to extend a little bit and it will be a little bit longer. When I went to Quebec for 4 days and it seemed like the perfect amount of time. But if you're short on time, you could do just 3 or 2 days and cut out some of the things that I'm going to suggest afterwards in my episode. The second travel advice that I could give to you is when should you visit Quebec? This is going to be a very cold city. And when I say this, I mean it's much colder than Toronto and Montreal, which are already very cold. So I would recommend looking for relatively warm months. September or October are my favorite months because of the beautiful colors that you'll find in the city, which is a trend that I've been telling you in all of this Quebec region. But also, I have visited in March Quebec and it had snow, which makes the landscapes very beautiful as well. So I would recommend avoiding the peak of the cold months, which is going to be around November, December, Jan, or February. Although I know this is also a very beautiful winter destination, but I feel a lot of cold, so I think it's too cold for me. If you do decide to go to some ski places nearby, you should for sure bring very good jackets, gloves, and hats to face this harsh climate. The last and third tip that I want to give to you is where should you stay when you're going? There is a hotel that I found that has the perfect location because it's cheap and it's right in front of all of the beautiful things of Quebec, and it's called Hotel Terrasse du Ferrin. This hotel is going to put you in the heart of the historic center at a very affordable price, and it also includes a small breakfast, so it's a good option if you're on a tight budget. If you want more luxury, though, then I would recommend staying at the most iconic hotel in this entire city, which is called the Hotel Frontenac. And I will tell you more about this place later, but as a spoiler, it's going to be a castle in the middle of a city, one of the most important buildings in this region, and a place of great historical importance. So if you want to stay at an epic hotel, this is your chance. Now, let's move on to all of the things that you can do when you're staying at Quebec. And here I have to clarify that most of the attractions and things that I'm going to be mentioning are going to be located in the part of Old Quebec, which is the most beautiful area. And honestly, I didn't even visit the new area or the new Quebec because there aren't as many touristy things. So all of the things that I will mention will be in this old area, and I will start my list with the Icon of Quebec, which is the hotel that I was just mentioning. Its full name is going to be Chateau Frontenac. This iconic hotel is going to take the title of being the most photographed hotel in the entire world. It was built in 1893 by the Canadian Pacific Railway, and this hotel is the symbol of the city. Even if you don't stay in this hotel, you should go in the inside to take either a guided tour or just explore all of these rooms because it's highly, highly recommended. Not only since it's very beautiful, but also because it's very historical. For example, inside the hotel, if you take the tour, you'll be able to see a pink room where Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, met with US President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1943 and 1944 to plan the strategies that would be used to end World War II. And it is believed that in this same room, they refined the plans for the Normandy landing, so this is going to be an epic place for all of the history geeks. Apart from this, there are many other places that have been historically important or that were visited by many celebrities, so I think this is a tour that is going to be worth taking. And even though it is a little bit expensive since it costs $26.50 per person for just an hour of tour, they have a combo for families where 2 adults and 2 children can join for $66. I'm going to drop the link in the description where you can schedule the tour if you're interested, but I did take the tour and I highly recommend it because I really liked it, and I especially liked discovering all of the history of this hotel because that is something that you can't simply see from the outside. After visiting this hotel, or I should say the castle, the next stop that you should take is going to be Terrasse du Ferrin. And this is going to be a large wooden terrace that will offer spectacular views of the St. Lawrence River, and it is a perfect place to stroll around and take the best pictures of Chateau Frontenac. This terrace is named after Lord Dufferin, which is a Governor General of Canada who loved Quebec City. And so the terrace is very eternally popular because it has been expanded twice since it was constructed. While you're there, you can visit another historic site, which is the remains of the fort and castles of St. Louis, which are going to lie beneath this iconic terrace. So as you're walking, you'll be able to see all of these remains underneath. When you finish walking through Terrasse du Front, you're going to see a statue of the founder of the city. And here you can start to go down and approach my favorite viewpoint in Quebec, which is going to be the Cascou Stairs. And I will write the name on the screen so you know how to spell it, but this name in French is going to mean the stairs that break neck. And they are not going to be that dangerous. Maybe if you're visiting during the winter with ice, you may fall, but it's just the name, and from the stairs you can see the beautiful neighborhood of Petit Champlain. At the bottom of all of the stairs, you'll find the charming neighborhood that is the oldest in all of North America. It has cobblestone streets that are lined with stores, art galleries, and delicious restaurants. Here, you should enjoy a typical flaneur stroll, exploring all of these little shops, the parks, the different stores, the murals, everything while discovering this colonial architecture and watching these beautiful houses. Here are also going to be some of my favorite restaurants in all of Quebec. For example, there is one that's called Le Lapin Sauté, which is an incredible restaurant that has the best creme brulee that I've ever eaten in Quebec. And you can also try rabbit poutine, which is probably the most Quebecois thing that you can do when you're visiting this city. There is also another delicious place that's called Coup de Sac, and over here they're going to have the best onion soup. And they also prepare everything delicious, creating some things like macaroni and cheese, but with French modifications. They have duck wings. Everything is going to be very, very good. And almost every restaurant that you will try in Petit Champlain will be delicious, but I have to admit that these are my two favorites. So if you're a foodie, go to these places and order the dishes that I recommended because you will not be disappointed. But either way, you can just stroll and try eating in one of those places because it's going to be for sure a very nice meal. In this neighborhood, when you're walking as a flaneur, maybe you will find Place Royale, which was the center of trade at the time of the New France. This is going to be a very good place to learn about the origins of Quebec and admire the church of Notre Dame de Victoire, one of the oldest in Canada. It is said that in this same place is where Samuel de Champlain founded the city. However, in the center of the square, you won't find the statue of him, you'll find a statue of Louis XIV. This was the French king at the time, so you might be thinking, why is he still over here? Well, this king, Louis XIV, was a very important person for this city and this entire region for a very particular initiative that was called Les Filles du Roi, or the Daughters of the King. And so what happened is that when Quebec was a French colony, nobody wanted to live here. It was very cold, it was very far, and so the king needed all of these lands to have people in order to have a strong empire. So he created this program called Les Filles du Roi, and he sent about 770 women to Canada between 1663 and 1673. Most of them were unmarried French women, and many of them were orphans. And the king was paying for their transportation to Canada, their settlement in the colony, and he even paid this woman to get married. This initiative was an entire success, and their marriages resulted in 4,500 births, tripling the population of New France, and today an estimated 20 million Canadians and Americans are descendants from one or more of this Fils du Roi. So, if you would like to learn more about this history, I would recommend highly taking either a free walking tour around Quebec or looking further into this because it is for sure a very interesting initiative. And if you're American or Canadian, maybe you might even be related to some of these ladies. Now, if you would like to continue exploring this old part of Quebec, I would recommend on a second day visiting everything that's outside of Petit Champlain. For example, you could visit the Cathedral Notre Dame de Quebec, which was built in 1647 and it's the oldest church north of Mexico. Its interiors are decorated with gilded details and its impressive stained glass windows. Also, when you're walking, you can find cobblestone streets that will make you feel in Paris, and others like Rue Saint John or Rue Saint Louis that are going to be very typical, full of good restaurants, bakeries, and ice cream parlors. Nearby, you'll also find the Parliament of Quebec, which was built in 1886 and it's the seat of the provincial government. The main facade is going to have 26 bronze statues of men and women who have marked the history of this province. The Parliament is going to offer free guided tours where you can learn about Quebec's national political system and its history, but you must book them in advance. When I went there, I thought they were only free at a specific time, but when I went, I found out too late that I had to book it, so I will drop the link in the comments so you can take a tour of this parliament and let me know in the comments as well what do you think if you manage to have it. And then after the parliament, you could do two of my favorite places in Quebec, which are going to be its citadel and Abraham's Plains. So the Citadel of Quebec is going to be a star-shaped fortress that was built between 1820 and 1850 to defend the city from the possible American attacks. Today, it is home to the Royal 22E Regiment, and you can take a tour to learn about all of its military history, which is pretty cool. And the other side, the Plains of Abraham, are going to be the largest park that was also a historical scene of the 1759 battle between the British and the French, which marked the end of the French rule in Canada. Today, this is going to be a great place to stroll and enjoy the gardens. I went to see the sunset here, and it gives you beautiful views. And also, once you finish watching the sunset, you can take the stairs and walk down to the Dufferin Terrace, and you will be literally some meters away from the hotel that I recommended at the beginning, Hotel Terrasse Dufferin. So, here you could make the complete circuit of the city. And as you can see, Quebec has many things that you could explore in the city, but besides that, it also has many other places that you could do in short trips. So if you stay more than 2 days, my first recommendation would be visiting the Montmorency Falls, which are going to be some falls that are 30 meters higher than the Niagara Falls. So they're going to be very, very high, and they reach over 83 meters of altitude. You can walk along these trails, cross the suspended bridge over the falls, or take a cable car to enjoy the panoramic views. And this falls, the good thing is that they're going to be very close to the city. It's only like 15 minutes away by car, or you could even get there by bus. You will take the bus and it will be the last stop. The entrance fee to this falls is going to be between $8 and $12, depending on when you visit and your age, but I think this is going to be definitely worth visiting. Another short trip that you could make would be visiting Ile d'Orleans, which is an island located in the St. Lawrence River, and it's kind of like traveling to the past. If you heard my Niagara episodes, you will find that it's similar to Niagara on the Lake because it's a small island that has vineyards, colonial houses, and it's ideal for touring by car or by bike. So don't miss, if you can, the wine or the ice cider tastings, which are going to be, similar to my Niagara episode, a local speciality. This island is going to be very beautiful with the historic buildings and beautiful scenery, so it's a relaxing short trip that you could take to discover this small town and its vineyards. If you prefer something more historical, then I would recommend that you go to Saint-Anne-de-Beaupré, which is a small town close to Quebec where the Cathedral of Saint-Anne-de-Beaupré is located. So the history of this cathedral is going to begin in 1658, thanks to what many consider a miracle that was attributed to Saint Anne, which is the grandmother of Jesus. So, according to the legends, there was a small boat from France that was sailing down the St. Lawrence River towards Canada when a night storm took them by surprise. The situation was desperate, but the crew was starting to pray to St. Anne, promising her to build a shrine if they made it out alive. At dawn, the sky was clear, the ship was safe, so, true to their promise, they immediately began building a chapel in her honor. The first recorded miracle occurred during the construction of this sanctuary, when a man that had scoliosis was hired to help with the foundations of this chapel, and after laying 3 stones, he was cured. And to date, this cathedral is the oldest pilgrimage site in North America, and it continues to be a symbol of faith and hope for those who visit it. So if you want to see a historical and religious place at the same time, I would recommend that you go to this cathedral. Finally, if you're looking for doing physical activity or nature, about 30 minutes away from Quebec, you'll find the Jacques Cartier National Park.
And this park is going to offer breathtaking landscapes of valleys and mountains, and it is ideal for hiking, kayaking, paddleboarding, or all of these outdoor activities that are spectacular to do in Canada. I personally like hiking the most, and there are over 100 kilometers of trails in this park where you can hike and watch deer, beavers, and even if you're lucky, moose, but I've never managed to see them. And so that's the end of my Quebec episode and the entire series of my episodes in Canada. As you saw, there's a lot to do in this city and in this incredible country. So let me know in the comments if I missed to include any of the places that you have on your Canada travel bucket list or any other places that you've been to so other travelers can go and visit them. If you like this episode, please share it with someone else who loves to travel. Give me a comment and a review because this is going to help me tremendously and it will motivate me to give you more travel tips. Also, let me know in the comments if you found these tips to be useful and subscribe because next week we are going to travel to the other end of the continent to visit the longest and narrowest country in the world. Safe travels!